Okay. So I hope everyone is able to see, right? Students online?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just we'll revise. So last class, what are all the concepts that we saw? So we started with the basic concept of what is a charge. Then we saw the different types of charge. Then we concentrated on the properties of charge. So once that was over, then we came to the concept of Coulomb's law. So what did Coulomb's law speak about? It spoke about the interaction between the charges. Please. It is the force of attraction or repulsion between two what? That is a very important point.
Between two charges.
Product of magnitude of charges.
Underlined. Coulomb's law is applicable only for. Did I give you that statement? Did I give that word last class? Did I miss it? What was the statement I gave, Nikhil? Oh, I directly wrote the mathematical expression. No? I didn't give you a statement. Please write it down. So Coulomb's law has a statement. Force of attraction or repulsion between two point charges. Okay, that word you need to underline. That is what I am more concerned about. The force of attraction or repulsion between two point charges is directly proportional to whom? The product of the magnitude of the charges and
Inversely
and
proportional to square of distance between.
inversely proportional to the square of the distance of the separation between them. Right? Now comes the next question. So we have seen the mathematical expressions. When two point charges Q1 and Q2, we have taken them to be of the same nature for the time being. They need not be of the same nature, right? So F is directly proportional to whom? The magnitude, that is the modulus of Q1 into modulus of Q2, and it is inversely proportional to the square. It follows the inverse square law. Okay. So last class I asked you a question. Why is it so? One logic is clear. Let's think in terms of magnet, okay? So think of the charges as two magnets. So if I have a magnet here, I have another magnet here. Okay, I have the same set of magnets to sense the force. If I separate the same magnets to a slightly greater distance, still I will be able to sense the force. But in which case is the magnitude going to be higher? Obviously when they are closer, because the impact is going to be more. That's the logic. So one logic that comes out is force is inversely proportional to distance. But why is it only inversely proportional to the square of the distance? Why can't it be inversely proportional to R? Why does it need to follow this inverse square law? The answer to that question, I am not going in detail, lies in a definition of a term called as intensity. Okay, have you heard this word intensity? So what does intensity mean? Something which is conservative. So intensity, so for example, if I speak about, see, is the intensity more or less? Obviously less. So here intensity, in terms of what did I speak? I spoke in terms of intensity of light. That is, if you have a room where there are two tube lights, if you switch on one tube light, you are going to have some intensity. If you switch on two tube lights, you are so intensity has a definition like this: the amount of power radiated per unit area is what we call it as intensity. If you want, you can make a note of it. Intensity means the amount of power radiated per unit area. That power can either be in terms of light or sound. So in terms of intensity with respect to light, it is speaking about the brightness. In terms of intensity about the sound, it speaks about the loudness. Okay, amount of power per area. Because of that area only, you are getting that 1 by R square. Anyway, that point is actually not needed from exam point of view. It is an extra information for you to think of why it is only inversely proportional to R square. So one point is clear that it follows the inverse square law. I hope that is clear, right? And K value is given as 9 into 10 power 9 Newton meter square per Coulomb square, and epsilon naught is given by 8.85 into 10 power minus 12 Coulomb square per Newton meter square. So these values are to be remembered. And you have expressed force in terms of the product of both the charges in what form? F is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught Q1 Q2 divided by R square, and this is what we call it as the scalar form of force. The reason why I am calling it a scalar form is because what type of a quantity is force? Is it a scalar or? Force is a vector. It has a direction associated with it. But till now, we didn't discuss anything about the direction. So we wrote only in terms of magnitude. So when you want to solve the problem, so depending on the nature of the problem they are asking, you can either use the scalar form or vector form. So when will you obviously use the scalar form? If in a question they are only concerned about magnitude. If they ask only about magnitude, yes, you are going to use scalar form. If they are going to ask about the direction, we need to understand vector form. So the next topic that we are going to see is Coulomb's law in vector form. Shall we start? So obviously when I say vector form, I need to introduce certain vectors. We are going to deal with the same scenario, but with a different perspective. Okay. If I take this as x-axis and if I take this as y-axis, the same two charges are there, Q1 and Q2. Instead of keeping them horizontal, I have kept it in some random way. If I call this as Q1 and if I call this as Q2, then there are certain positions associated with respect to the charges. If I call this as A and if I call this as B, then there is an important vector, type of vector called as the position vector. What does position vector mean? Any vector whose starting point is origin is what we call it as a position vector. So let's see. Position vector. This is another position vector. Let me name this position vector as R1 vector, and let me name the other position vector as R2 vector. So what I'm trying to say is OA vector, I'm calling it as R1 vector, and OB vector, I'm calling it as R2 vector. I hope it is clear. Right? Now, if I want to find what is AB vector, what is AB vector? AB vector means, so AB vector means, what is it forming? OAB forms a triangle. So what triangle law of addition of vectors, what does it state? Very good. So they are said to be continuous vectors. So if you have two continuous vectors which are represented along the sides of a triangle, okay, taken in order. So what do you mean by in order? This ending point of the first vector will be the starting point of the second vector. For example, in this case, which vector's ending point is the starting point of the other? OA vector. So tell me which two vectors are in order? R1 vector and AB vector are in order. Then the resultant of these two is given by the closing in the reverse order. So taken in the reverse order, which is in the reverse order? OB vector. So guys, are you able to understand what I am trying to say? I am trying to say OA vector plus AB vector is equal to OB vector. Means my objective is to go from O to B. I can go from O to B either from O directly to B, or from O to A and then from A to B, right? So OA vector is given as R1 vector. If I call AB vector as R vector, okay, I'm calling it as a general vector R, then R1 vector plus R vector is given as R2 vector, which implies R vector is equal to how much? R2 vector minus
R2 minus R1 vector.
R2 minus R1.
vector minus R1 vector, simple logic. Now, I'm just taking the help of the concept of relative velocity from your last year concept. You don't remember also, no problem. If I have to find the relative velocity of 1 with respect to 2, it is 1 minus 2. In a similar way, if I have to apply this concept here, okay, so I will call this as R21 vector. So from this, what can I conclude? R21 vector is nothing but AB vector, correct? Then what can I say BA vector is? BA vector will be negative of R21 vector, which is nothing but R12 vector. Does it make sense? Because minus of R21 vector will be R1 vector minus R2 vector. I'll write the intermediate step also for those who didn't understand. So negative of R2 vector minus R1 vector is equal to R1 vector minus R2. That is the case. Okay. So all these points are to be in mind. Next is if I have, okay, I'll do all the rough work on the side. If A like this, whose magnitude is A, then how can I write A vector in terms of its magnitude and direction? It is magnitude of A vector times. So what is vector which is used to represent direction? It is a unit vector. So I will write it as A cap. Anish, are you able to understand? So A vector is equal to modulus of A vector times A cap. Shashank, clear? No doubt? Now, in a similar logic, can I say R21 vector is nothing but, sorry, this is not clear. In a similar way, if you observe, there is a charge Q1 here, there is another charge Q2 here. So Q1 is here and Q2 is here. Now, in what direction will Q1 experience force due to Q2? If they both are taken to be of same nature, if Q1 and Q2 are of same nature, Q1 will experience force due to Q2 in which direction? Will it experience a repulsive force or an attractive force? It will experience a repulsive force. So it will experience a repulsive force in which direction? It will experience it along the line joining both the charges. An important point. Okay, because these type of forces are called as central forces. Have you heard this word before? Gravitational force is a central force. So any force for which the force is acting along the line joining the particles is what we call it as central force. I want you to make a clear note of it. The force between 2 point charges always acts where? Along the line joining both the charges. Right. Okay. So what were we discussing? Acts along the line joining both the charges. Right. Now, so there will be a force F acting in this direction. Similarly, B will experience a force due to A in this direction along the same line joining, whose magnitude is still going to be F. What do I mean by magnitude still going to be F? It is the same 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into Q1 Q2 divided by R square. New student. So both the magnitudes are f, but we need to give the notation to it, right? So how do I get the notation? So understand this. AB vector is how much? It is R21 vector. So AB vector is R21 vector. BA vector is R12 vector. So what I will do is, I am giving a notation like this. I will call this force as F12. What am I trying to say? F12 is force experienced by 1 due to 2. Okay? Or I can say force exerted by 2 on 1. Both mean the same. Okay, please make a note of it. So F12 vector is equal to force experienced by the first charge, due to the second charge. Force experienced by the first charge due to the second charge. F12 vector. Similarly, F21 is force experienced by the second passive voice. Guys online, are you able to understand what I am trying to say?
Yes, sir.
Any doubt?
Could you repeat it?
Yeah. I'm saying F12 vector is force experienced by first charge due to second charge. F21 vector is force experienced by second charge due to the first charge. Okay. Now,
Yes, sir.
using this logic of A vector is equal to magnitude of A vector times A cap, how can I write F12 vector as? F12 vector will be magnitude of F12 vector times F12 cap. Right. So what is the magnitude of Coulomb's law? What is it? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught multiplied with Q1 into Q2, the whole divided by R square. But the important question is F12 cap is in which direction? F12 is matching with R12. So I can write it as R12 cap. Correct? So this is F12 vector. Now what can I write? F21 vector. Okay, wait. There is a small change I need to make. Similarly, A cap is how much? A vector divided by magnitude of A vector. Magnitude of A vector. Right. Then R12 cap will be how much? R12 cap will be R12 vector divided by magnitude of R12. Magnitude of R12 is nothing but the distance between the points A and B, which is still R. So if I take this and substitute it here, what am I going to get? F12 vector will be equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into magnitude of Q1 into magnitude of Q2 divided by R square into R12 vector divided by R, which is epsilon naught into magnitude of Q1 into magnitude of Q2, the whole divided by R cube into R12 vector. So when you talk about the vector notation for force, how many ways can you represent them? You can represent them in two ways, where one of the ways is going to be representing it in terms of unit vector, the other is going to be representing it in terms of the vector itself, that is R12 vector. So remember this, when it is R12 cap, the denominator is R square, whereas when it is R12 vector, denominator is R cube. Shall I move on? Guys,
Yes, sir.
anybody having a doubt?
No, sir. You move on, sir.
Okay. Now let's go to the next important concept, which is called as the principle of superposition. So what is not new to you, right? The principle of superposition. You have heard it. Where did you hear? Last year it was there. In a chapter, last chapter. Waves, standing waves, modes, antinode. You had something called as principle of superposition. Okay. Now how are you going to apply that concept here? That is the question. So let's try to understand. The first point is Coulomb's law. There are certain drawbacks in it. What is it? First is it is applicable only for point charge. Means if the charge is going to have a finite size associated with it. For example, if I take this pen, it has a sign associated. If I give charge on this, I cannot apply Coulomb's law. I cannot directly write the formula because the charge on all these, the total charge put on this is not be Q1. Some part of this might be Q1. I need to use calculus to solve it, which is going to be a tougher part. That is one thing. Second is Coulomb's law speaks only about the interaction between how many point charges? 2 point charges. But it is not necessary that any system in this world is only going to have 2 charges. You can have multiple charges. For example, if I take a triangle, how many charges can I think of? I can place 3 charges that divide. If I take a square, I can place 4. If I take a hexagon, 6. So if I go to this kind of a system, then how are we going to apply Coulomb's law to find the net force? Is what this principle of superposition is going to tell us. Okay. So write down the statement. If n point charges are present in the system, if n point charges are present in the system, the net force experienced by any charge due to the remaining system, the net force experienced due to any charge due to the remaining system is equal to vector sum, is equal to the vector sum of individual forces acting on the system. Oh, sorry. Individual forces acting on the object due to the remaining system. Okay. Right. Now see. If I take this as 1, 2, 3, 4, all these charges are randomly spaced. Right. I don't know the distance between them, all those things. Now what does the statement say? If there are n point charges in the system, then the net force experienced by any charge due to the remaining charges present in the system is equal to what? Underline the word vector sum. Because force is a vector quantity, is equal to the vector sum of whom? Of the individual forces experienced by the same charge due to the remaining part of the system. So let's try to visualize what they are trying to say. If I am interested to find what is the force experienced by the first charge, so how many particle system is this, by the way? It's a 4 particle system. So if I take one particular charge, that particular charge is going to experience the force due to the remaining 3 particles in the system. Correct? So the force experienced by the first particle due to second is going to be in which direction? Along line joining them. If I take them to be of the same nature, what do I mean by same nature? If we consider everything to be of positive or everything to be of negative, then the force experienced by 1 due to 2 is going to be in this direction. So what is the name of this force? F. 1, 2. Similarly, due to the third charge, it is going to experience a force in this direction. Name. Fourth charge. Can I add all these quantities directly? Can I perform a direct addition between them? The reason being, they have directions associated. They look at them, no, they are in random direction. So what we need to do is, if I need to find the resultant force acting on whom? On the first charge, then it is given as the vector sum, that is F12 vector plus F13 vector plus F14 vector. This is going to be the mathematical expression for whom? For the principle of superposition. Clear, guys? Students on the other side?
Yes, sir.
Clear, sir.
Sorry?
Clear, sir.
Clear, right? Okay. So I'm proceeding to the next concept. Now we will see how to apply this concept in a problem. Okay. So let me give you a question like this. Consider an equilateral triangle of side A with 3 charges placed at the vertices of it of same magnitude and nature. Okay. So now how many particle system is this? 3 particle system. So a fourth charge of magnitude 2q and same nature is placed at the centroid of the triangle. At the centroid of the triangle, find force experienced by the charge at centroid due to the remaining charges. This is a question. So I hope you guys are able to visualize what the question is. Right. Now let's see. There are 3 point charges Q placed at the vertices. There is a fourth charge which is 2Q, which is placed exactly at the centroid A, B, and C. Okay, which is placed at the centroid. Now I am interested to calculate the force experienced by the charge 2Q due to the remaining 3 charges. How do we solve? First, find the directions. How do we do it? So I will number them, okay? Second charge and the third charge. The force experienced by the fourth charge due to the, okay, I'll call this as fourth. The fourth charge will experience the force due to the first one in which direction? In the downward direction. Along the line joining both the charges. What is the name of this force? F. What is F. Force experienced by the fourth particle. See, that is how I have named. Sometimes the textbook it might be reversed also. Okay, some books will give it in reverse. But if you have stated something, you need to write it. If you write F41, you should write it in the side saying that force experienced by the fourth charge due to the first charge. Clear? B between second and fourth. Line joining. How much is this? It is F42. Name. 4, 3.
4, 3.
So the resultant is going to be F41 vector plus F42 vector plus F43 vector. Right. If I draw a free body diagram of point G, if I draw it like this, then how do I add them vectorially? But before that, I need to know what is the magnitude of each force now. If I take each side is given as A, then what is going to be the magnitude of F41, F42 and F43? If suppose the magnitude is going to be, if you are able to find the magnitude, do you think they are going to be the same or different? Why? Because the same two charges are there in the participating. What are the two charges in all the cases? Q and 2Q. So if I write F41, what am I going to write in terms of magnitude? F41 will be equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into Q into 2Q divided by x square. Okay, if I take the distance as x, the distance will be x square. Similarly, F42, 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught, Q into same 2Q divided by, this is where you need to be careful. It is also going to be x square because it is symmetric. And what is the value of that x? Any idea? So how to find that x is? If you take the triangle like this, if you drop a perpendicular, this distance is a by 2, this is 30 degrees. If I take this as x, a by 2 divided by x is going to give you cos 30 degrees. So what is the value of x? You calculate it, you will get it as a by root 3. Okay, this is a value. So from this, an important conclusion that we can draw is F41 is equal to F42 is equal to F43. I will call it as F. Means I am trying to say their magnitude is the same. Correct? Now, if I write this as F, if I write this as F, and if I write this also as F. Now comes an important question. If this angle is 30 degrees, okay, if this angle is 30, this angle is 90, then how much is this angle? It is 60.
60.
In a similar way, this is also going to be 60 degrees. Right? So what is the angle between the force F41 and F42?
120.
Is 20 degrees. Sorry, da? Yes, all the angles will be 120 because 360 should. Answer is 0, right? Okay. So this is 120, but I'm trying to show the steps. So F42 is there. Now what we need to do is, whichever vector is not aligned along x direction or y direction should be resolved into components. So if it has to be resolved, I need to break it into a horizontal component and a vertical component. Similarly, I'll have a horizontal component here also. So out of 120, if 90 is gone, then how much is this? This is 30 degrees. Then this F can be resolved into horizontal component as F. And here, very good. Here also it is going to be 30 degrees. So it can be resolved into two components. What are they? F cos 30 degrees and F sin 30
Sin.
degrees. Now, this is how the diagram will be. One F sin 30 and the other F sin 30. And downward there is a force F. Horizontally there is F cos 30 and here also F cos 30. Now what are all the forces that get cancelled? F cos 30 and F cos 30 will get cancelled because they are of the same magnitude and opposite direction. F cos 30 and F cos 30 are gone. Now what about the total vertical force? It is F sin 30 plus F sin 30 minus, so F sin 30 plus F sin 30 is 2F sin 30 minus F. So 2f into sine 30 is half minus f gone. So f minus f is going to be 0. So the net vertical force is also 0 and the net horizontal force is also 0. So in this case, what is going to happen? The charge which is placed at the centroid is going to experience no force. Actually, we need not solve all these things. I just showed you all these things to apply the principle of superposition. How can you directly say? Based on symmetry. Based on the symmetry, you can say the charge, the net force is going to be 0. Sometimes what they can do is, they'll give you a question like this. There are three charges placed at the vertices of equilateral triangles. There is a charge of 2q which is placed. The net force is 0. What would be the net force if the charge at the centroid is changed to 3q? It is still 0. If it changed to 4q, still 0. Because it is independent of whatever charge is placed at the center, as long as the charges at the vertices are they should be of the same type and the same nature. Okay, so there is a problem in your textbook where there are problems with different nature also that I will solve slightly at a different time. First, you get the basics of this concept. Okay, so this point, the resolution whichever I have done is very important because you'll be applying it in the future derivations. So please make sure you're clear with it. If there is any doubt, get it directly. Okay, please copy it. Done? Now, if the question is asked like this, there are 4 charges placed at the vertices of a rectangle of side A and B, and the charges which are placed at the vertices are Q. Okay. At the point of intersection of diagonals, there is a charge of magnitude 6Q that is placed. Find the force experienced by the charge at the point of intersection of diagonals due to the remaining system. Find it out. You should get it, but prove it. Got it? Huh? So what are we supposed to do? First charge, second, third, and fourth. Let me call this as 5. So what is the name of this force? If Fi3. So Fi2 and Fi4 will have equal magnitude. Fi3 and Fi1 will have equal magnitude 1. So answer is 0. So wherever you have this kind of a symmetric property, the answer is going to be 0. I hope others also understood.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
No. Okay. We'll see the next concept that is there in this chapter, which is called as. So till now we saw what is charge, how do the charges interact. The next concept that we are going to see is electric field. Electric field. So what do you mean by electric field? If I say something as a gravitational field, so it is a region around a charge or a charge distribution where you can sense the force, is what we call it as electric field. Write it down. The region around a charge, or the region around a charge or charge distribution. The region around the charge or charge distribution where the electrostatic force can be experienced. The region around a charge or charge distribution where electrostatic force can be experienced is what we call it as electric field. So electric field is only region, correct? There is another term called as electric field intensity. This is an important term only. So electric field intensity is represented by the symbol E. Okay. So for you to understand electric field intensity, I need to introduce two terms. If I have a charge like this, okay, if I have a positive charge, a point charge for that matter, let's say its charge is Q. Then around this charge Q, there will be a particular region where you try to bring in another charge, the other charge will start experiencing force. Okay, so that region around this charge is what we call it as, electric field. Right, that is going to be in all the directions. It is going to be in three-dimensional shape. So it is not a circle, rather it is a sphere. Now, this charge which is generating the electric field is technically called as the source charge. Okay. So to find out whether the source, to find out the strength of the source charge, what we need is a test charge. Right? We need to do some testing, no, to understand how much strength the other particle is going to have. So if you take a test charge and place it outside the electric field of the source charge. So what do I mean by outside the electric field of source charge? Means beyond that point, wherever you try to place another charge, it is not going to get influenced. Okay, I am placing the test charge at a point outside the electric field. That point in terms of physics is also called as infinity. Okay. So if I place it here, there is going to be no interaction. Okay. So the name of this charge is called as test charge because this is used to test the intensity of the electric field generated due to the source charge. Now when this test charge is brought into the electric field, what do you think will happen? It will experience a force. It will experience an attractive or a repulsive force depending on the nature of the source charge. Try to understand one thing. So try to understand one thing, that source charge can be positive or negative, but test charge by default is always positive. Test charge is always positive. Please make a note of it. Okay. So when the test charge is brought into the influence of the electric field due to the source charge, it will start experiencing a force of how much value? 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught q into q naught, something like that, right? So I'm going to write the generic formula now. I'm not going to write the formula for a point charge, because what is the definition I gave for electric field? It is region around a charge or a charge distribution also. When I speak about source charge, I'm talking only about one charge, but there might be a region where we are interested to study about the electric field. I might have 5 charges. I'm interested to study about the region around those 5 charges. Okay, so at that time the definition will vary. So how is this electric field intensity defined mathematically? Is it is like this. The electric field intensity is defined as the net force experienced by the test charge divided by the magnitude of test charge. So the net force experienced by the test charge due to whom? Due to the whole system divided by Q naught. This is what is a mathematical expression for the electric field intensity. It is a mathematical definition for electric field intensity. Last concept. If I have to find the electric field intensity due to a point charge, then what is it going to be? E will be equal to, in the place of F naught, I will write it as 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught into Q naught divided by whatever is the distance of separation between them at that instant. Let us say at that instant, the distance of separation between them is R. Okay, then I will write it as R square. That is the net force experienced by the test charge divided by Q naught and Q naught will get cancelled. Q divided by 4 pi epsilon naught R square is the mathematical expression for whom? For the force, for the electric field intensity due to a point charge. Here you see the word intensity. It is because of this electric field intensity being inversely proportional to R square, the force in Coulomb's law is also inversely proportional to R square. Is that clear? So this is a very, very, very important expression that we'll be using it in many places. So with this, I will stop. Next class, we will continue with the derivations of certain parts. Okay. I'll tell you how electric field lines work, how to calculate electric field due to different systems. Okay. Any other doubt, guys? Students, you guys are
No
clear?
doubt, sir.
No doubt, sir.
Okay. So go through this video once it is uploaded today. So for tomorrow's class, come prepared. We'll discuss some higher concepts. So I'll see
Okay,
you all.
sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
Thank you, sir.